with Tampa Bay Plumbers, and I want to give you a little explanation on our septic service and what separates it from all the other companies in town. And I know right now you're trying to find the right company to clean your septic tank or maintenance your septic system, and this is one of those things that all companies were not created equal. It starts with the equipment. This machine here is a 2,500 gallon pump truck. This is unique from most pump trucks because it has a jetter built into it, which is essentially a high-powered pressure washer that operates off of the PTO on the truck. The reason why this is so important for septic work is most septic tanks have an enormous amount of sludge and solids in the tank because they have been pumped out often enough, or there's unusually high use on the system. And if you come in and you just try to pump the tank out without a high pressure water in conjunction with the vacuum, it's impossible to get all of the solids and sludge out of the tank. It is critical that that takes place. The most important thing when you're going to maintenance a septic tank is removing the sludge and the solids. Just pumping the liquid out does absolutely nothing for you as a homeowner and for the property and for the septic system as a whole. So when you're looking at hiring a contractor for maintaining your septic system, you have to look at the price. Obviously, the price is important. You have to look at whether or not they're going to come out with equipment that can do the job properly. Hose down the sidewalls of the tank, inspect the entire tank, make sure there's no cracks, breaks, roots growing into the sidewalls, or any compromises with the lid. Unless you have a pressure washer like this that produces 10 to 15 gallons of water a minute at up to 4,000 psi, it's almost impossible to cut all that stuff up and get it pumped out correctly. No matter what anyone tells you, this is what you need to have. Now, in addition to that, you have to have an operator that knows what they're doing. Our guys do the same thing every single time. And when we get out to your house, we're going to probe using a probing rod to find the exact location of the tank. We're going to lay down some protective cloth on your grass, and we're going to dig up your yard and place your grass and dirt on this tarp. And when we're done pumping out your tank and maintaining the system, we're going to backfill that to where you barely even know anyone was there. We put the grass right back on top, pull the tarp right back over the trench, and within a few days, 1 or 2 rains, you really can't even tell we were there. Now, in addition to that, we always pump out both sides of the tank. And what I mean by that is most primary septic tanks are baffled. If a tank has a baffle in the middle of it and you only expose one side, or the primary side, you're leaving an entire side of the tank completely unaddressed. 99% of the septic companies in this town will only open up one side of the tank. So you're getting half the job. With us, we're gonna come out and we're gonna neatly dig up the tank. We're gonna dig up both sides of the tank if it is baffled, and we're gonna clean your Baffle Tea Filter if you have one. That's another thing that a lot of companies will neglect to do. And the reason why is because they've come out, they've pumped the tank, they've already got your system flowing. They're gonna cut some corners to get the job done a little more quickly. All right, I want to explain in a little more detail why it's so important to dig up both sides of the primary tank. This is a Baffle Tea Filter. Beginning in 1996, building code started requiring a filter on the outlet end of the primary tank. This filter traps solids and keeps solids from going into the drain field. The primary reason why a drain field fails in Florida is because solids were forced out into the drain field. So if you don't dig up both ends of the tank and expose both ends of the tank, it is impossible to service this and clean it. This has to be cleaned every time you have your tank pumped. If not, what will happen is solids will begin to fill up inside of this this screen, it's actually very, you can see how good of a filter this is. It will not allow anything to pass through it. So if it's not cleaned periodically, and when I say periodically, I mean every year to 2 to 3 years at the most, it will back up your tank, which will back up your house. So it is critical that this is cleaned when you have your septic tank cleaned. And if you don't dig up both ends of the tank, it is impossible to actually clean the tank out correctly. That is another major difference with the Tampa Bay Plumbers septic service. Now, another thing that I wanted to touch on is regarding elevated drain fields. Elevated drain fields all have dosing tanks, they're called. From the primary tank, the effluent flows out of the end of the Baffle Tea Filter, and it goes into a smaller secondary tank called the dosing tank. That dosing tank has a pump inside of it, and when the water level rises in the pump kicks on and pumps the effluent out to the drain field. Now, another thing that separates our company from others is we actually dig up and expose the dosing tank, and we pump out any solids that have accumulated over time inside of that tank. Whenever we find a failing pump inside of a dosing tank, 99% of the time, the reason is that the dosing tank has not been maintained correctly. It has not been pumped out, and as such, debris will settle and form inside of the tank, grease, and other solids that, for whatever reason, weren't trapped by this, especially if this wasn't cleaned properly. More debris is obviously going to get through it, and it's going to get into the dosing tank. As that debris fills up in the dosing tank, it will encase the pump, which will keep the water off the pump, which the water is what cools the pump, so the pump eventually burns up, and then you're seeing a company out there to the tune of $500 to $700 just to replace the pump. All that could be avoided by hiring the right company the first time when it comes to maintaining your septic tank. If you have any questions about maintaining your septic tank, please give us a call at area code 813-961-7808. You can ask to speak to myself. I'm Ryan Pelkey. I'm the license holder for the company. Or you can ask to speak to Brad Kalis or Tim Nickel. They're both our septic specialists that work at the company. Have a good day.